can I ask?
Hey, we are live. My name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehan. So excited to be with you guys today. We have a very, very special guest, Laurel Airica, but it's spelled a little different, like the air, which I think is interesting, and she may be able to talk about that a little bit. But you guys know how much I absolutely adore and have studied, researched, kind of put my life into words and names and spells and just how the English language is. I've even looked in not only conscious language, but also reverse language. But this is a whole nother arena. I fell upon this lady many years ago and just recently found her again and actually reached out to her because she does individual client sessions and what have you, and I'll let her talk about that. But I reached out to her just being out for the last 6 weeks with my issues and the things I was kind of integrating and navigating through. And she was very helpful for me and asked her to be on the show. So I just want to, before we get started, remind you, go to swiftfire.org, also drsharnael.com. I have a ton of books. We have 5 different books there that I've written, my online classes. Our podcast is there with all the past guests. You can get on the newsletter and find out when and what time we're doing different things, whether it's teachings or more events or members meetings. So definitely get there. Definitely like, share, do all the things to help get this going. And I think without further ado, Laurel, thank you for being with us. I would love to just hear like how you got into this space of words, spells, magic, the English language in general. Tell us a little bit about your background and like how you got in this space.
Thank you for asking, and so lovely to be with you, Sharnael. Um, so I just came in to do this work. It's very clear to me. When I was 3 or 4, I remember saying to my parents, "I bet I now know all the words in the English language." And um, I also there was a I started looking at words that had the same sound but different meanings, and also words whose spelling seemed to indicate its meaning. Like the first word of that nature was level, Level. My father was an artist and he had a carpenter's level because he made his own frames. And I saw that little bubble in the center of it and that it was very level. And I saw that level was the same word frontward and backward. And coincidentally, my grandmother had a friend named Frank Level. And as a little girl, I'd see him and say Frank, Level, spelled frontward and backward. And the kind of word that has meaning frontward and backward is called a palindrome. So I just have been fascinated since very early with words, started collecting them, very interested in obscure words that hold big meanings in a few syllables. And this is how primarily I educated myself, because I had such an intimate connection with the language and played with it. I feel like a word whisperer because I hear messages. I go within and I hear messages and I look at words more closely and see that there's a whole subtext in the English language. And so we talk about conscious languaging, which is very important, yet have been virtually unconscious to the other level in which the English language communicates with us. And in the early 90s, I put together a sentence that I have called our premier life sentence. And I'll share it with you in a moment. Most people, or many people, find my work on my YouTube channel or where else my video has been placed. And the secret spells of the English language is the entree into my world wordview. And it goes this way. We awake each morning and go off during the weekdays to earn our living at various jobs and undertakings until we come to the weekend. And everyone shrugs their shoulders. Yeah, so. And we just consider that the normal way of life. I do what I call a translation of the English language. And I spell that TRANCE with the idea that words cast spells that put
Wow.
us in a trance,
Great.
which is why so many of us can be kind of on automatic, like a zombie walking through our lives. So, in terms of this life sentence, which I'll translate in a moment, it's important to know that more people die of heart failure between 6 and 10 a.m. Monday morning than any other time of the week.
Wow.
So I heard that first from Deepak Chopra and checked that out with other medical people. So when you translate that life sentence, we awake each morning. So awake is a funeral party celebrating the dead, and mourning is the state we're in when we attend awake. And so when we say to each other, good morning, on another level, subliminally, we're saying good grief. And we would have to be staggering around in a weekdays to earn the living, since urns are for the ashes of the dead. And we call our jobs undertakings. And job itself is a Hebrew word for persecuted, Job. And what we get at the end of this perverse bargain with life is the weekend of the deal, and progressively weakened over time. So while we refer to, in the US, we refer to a 10-year period as a decade, in Britain, for many, it's pronounced decade, which is kind of what happens when we're not living our truth, when we are living outside our purpose, which has a magnetic resonance that makes our hearts sing when we're living our purpose. And we all came here on purpose, especially that's evident now because we likely volunteered knowing that this was the time when enormous shifts were going to be taking place and that we could help seed the new vision of the life stream we would like to live instead of the current psychedelic nightmare we have somehow wound up in. So I posted that video in 2010. And oh, before posting it, I had a big so what about that life sentence. I thought, wow, that is really dark. It's like a death cult. But, there was a sort of a so what to it. And then I, my name, you asked about Airica. I pull ideas out of the air and they're a eureka experience. So the recognition at that time was that language is software and that English is the leading software of the Western mind. And it's filled with cultural biases that are akin to computer viruses. And I'm not talking about gender or race. I'm talking about the very kind of bias that has such a dark vision of reality that we have been speaking into existence without being of sufficiently sound mind to hear the echo in what we're saying. So part of the way I see to help heal the world is by evolving the language to evolve our own consciousness.
Wow. So is Erica actually your name, or did you change your name? Or
Well, when we say what's your real name, and that's kind of, well, what name what was your brand name? What did they give you at birth? And most people feel that they have to stick with it for reasons beyond me. I didn't feel that my original name was very resonant with my spirit. And so back in the early 80s or mid 80s, when it was easy to change names, I changed it. And Erica was a name for my higher self. one who had not been through the challenges and rigors of this life. And I didn't know what it meant for 20 years. And then it came to me. I pull ideas out of the air and they're a eureka experience.
Wow. Well, I mean, I've studied etymology, names. I'm obsessed with the book, like several books of name books, and finding out the connotation, like where it came from. I myself didn't know what my name meant for until I was in my late 20s. My mom actually had my name given to her in a dream, and then she forgot it when she woke up. So I was nameless for a minute. But then she went to some baby shower. It was like a dual baby shower, and they had like a Michelle there, and I think a Sharon or something. And somehow Sharon, Michelle, the Sharnael came together, and then she's like, that's it. She had a eureka moment too. And but later, years later, I found out that Sharna is a pasture, a huge centralized pasture in Israel, where all these sheep come to be nourished by the different types of flowers that bloom in this one area. And then El is of God. So it's like, uh, I believe that we live out our name in a way. And Anne Hamilton has a beautiful book. I don't know if you're heard of her. She's been on the show a few times, but about poetry, the poetry of God, and how different people will get a name and they'll live it in some way. But then when they change it, their personality changes, or when they get married, their personality changes. And she's got like documented cases of different things over and over and over again where, this guy did this because his name actually means this, and they did that back in the day when they named someone after like what they did for a living, whether they're a miner or a wood crafter or, something like that. But even later, I found out Sharna means both rose and warrior in Hebrew. So it's like, I'm the rose and the warrior of God, the place of nourishment for sheep to come. I mean, I consider myself a teacher. And so I just thought teacher of God, or, doctor actually means teacher as well. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of fascinating. But
I agree. It is. It's lovely. And it's pretty funny, too, about people living out their name that I think the phrase in Latin is the omen within nomen, the omen within name. And I was thinking long ago about Nelson Mandela and how it was like mandala, and how, he brought black and white together for a period of time. And then there's that guy who got caught sexting from the Capitol, and his name is Wiener.
Right.
I mean, these really are sometimes become an inescapable brand. And Princess Diana, people were chanting, Princess die, and Princess died.
Oh.
And we talk about, wanting to go viral on the internet. Well, the whole world went viral. We are pretty unaware of the power we have as speakers of the word, and also in terms of names. I have a poem I wrote. I think it's called "Is the World a Matrix Made Out of Word Tricks?" And it's about country names that have significance, and how, I don't know whether to go into it right now, but yeah, there's just echoes and reflections of us everywhere. I mean, one of the punchlines I should give you in that poem is, well, the Fighting Irish live in Ireland, and the world's sex capital is, pardon me, is called Bangkok. And when I looked it up, it said, but Bangkok is a small port for seamen, and the
Uh-uh,
capital of Thailand,
girl. What?
and its largest island is spelled Phuket. So you could pronounce it Phuket or Phuket.
Wow, girl, this is like, oof, sheesh.
Yeah.
Are
So
there
it's,
any other countries that you can
well,
share?
the poem begins, I think it begins somewhere like, since a major source of human friction responsible for great affliction is the arrogance with which most cultures designate what's fact or fiction, we might then very well expect, because our words and worlds connect, some state to state with ardent zeal, that it alone on earth is real. And since its people,
Israel. Ah, okay. Yeah.
and since its people Israelite, they wrote the book on wrong and right. And it goes on from there. I wrote it in the 90s, so geopolitical boundaries have changed. But at the time, in the 20th century, so this is about how Tweedledee fights Tweedledum, each hoping God is on his side, encouraging the fratricide. And then it went on, I had to take sections out of the poem, no longer relevant, but it went on to point out that the biggest um, contention in the world was between the US and the SU, which is how the Soviet Union was referred to at times.
Interesting.
And so, and each being like a reflection of the other. So, and I have a piece called, a poem called Putting the Source Before Descartes. And it points out that, the world has the look of a horror comic book, and we are out of tune with Toontown. And so we appear to be creating the matrix out of language.
Yes.
And we talk about sanity as, we refer to it as being of sound mind. But if you're not mindful of the sound of words, you can be someone who is adding to the energy behind a word with a double meaning that can be very subversive,
Yeah.
and leading to the recognition that just as language is software, and English the leading software of the Western mind, we can upgrade it collectively and creatively, with new words, new metaphors, new phrases, even new symbols that will equip us to talk about the higher realities we are endeavoring to become more present in and with and conscious of, like the divine. If we
Hmm.
call it, I mean, the word God is like X in an equation. It stands for something we don't know what. And yet it is a word that incites a lot of argument and assumptions about what you mean by this word and what I mean by this word. Just like we have the word love to mean everything from I love my child, I love my partner, I love that pair of shoes and your hairdo over there. So the language is not equipped to let us fully communicate about the range of our experiences, especially as so many of us are ascending into a more expansive consciousness and having experiences that are beyond words, not only because they're so extraordinary, but also because our language is so small. Even though it's got a million words, what I've found sometimes in collecting words that have fallen out of use, that almost no one knows, that they can expand our sense of human possibilities.
Hmm.
And Aristophanes said high thoughts must have high language, but we see that the language is being abbreviated and condensed, meanings are being changed willy-nilly. And Socrates said incorrect language is not only in itself a mistake, it implants evil in men's souls.
Wow.
So there is intentional manipulation of language to manipulate human consciousness. And that's why we need to take command of the English language, recognize that though we are, individually small, we have the power of the word on the tips of our tongue and fingers. And English is the most spoken language in the world. So it's been my intention for a while to have on my website a place where people can send in ideas for new words and phrases and be recognized and honored for those we decide to market. So they are the prophet that brings it through, developing their ability to open their own intuition, like pulling ideas out of the air, to higher consciousness, which is just so eager to embody in us in a ever more conscious instrument, and that the divine is looking to express itself fully in every moment and in every being, and that our job is to get the static out of the way, the conditioning, the trauma patterns, all of that stuff, because when the mind is quiet, then the heart opens and the wisdom emerges.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about something you said about the echo and the mirroring. I work with a guy named David Oates. Have you heard of David Oates?
Yeah, I worked with him years ago, reverse speech, many
Yeah.
years ago.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so then but for the people watching, there is an echo. There are layers, just like what she's saying, because as we speak, you can actually reverse it through different apps. You can get them on your phone or whatever, and if you slow it down and or change the pitch a little bit and just really listen, we're saying things backwards and forwards like all the time, and some of it is very congruent and some of it may not be, because we have a conscious choice and a will to speak forward, and we pick our words whether they're true or not. We pick the words that go in the order that they're going, but your subconscious is what speaks backwards, that echo, and the echo may not be the same as the forward, because your subconscious doesn't lie and it's very literal. And so
Yes.
we have a lot of people on the planet, and maybe some of them who have orchestrated some of these programs, who will say things forward, but backwards they're saying, I'm a fake, I'm scamming you, this isn't real, and even more harsh things like worship this. I don't even want to say the word, bad things, do bad things. There's sexual things that are said backwards. So like whatever is really in the subconscious actually comes out. And I'll give you an example is, I had just a little flash of a song that I wrote that I recorded, on the app or whatever. And when I played it backwards, it literally said Shane, my daughter's oldest name, who's away. It said Shaney, mommy misses you. And I was like, wow. I mean, I had been missing her, but I didn't even know how bad I'd been missing her until I heard it myself, and then yesterday I was trying to get plane tickets to go through to do a conference that I'm doing, and was trying to figure out to fly in through Montana or Seattle, or Spokane, I mean, and I really couldn't decide. And one way took a longer way than the other, and it made sense to go through Washington but Montana is my home state, and it's during my birthday, and I'm usually there on my birthday. And anyway, so I just talked to myself on the app and said, okay, so I can fly in here and go there, or I can fly in here. And I just did just see, and I played it backwards, and literally it said, I am so homesick. I am so homesick. I am so homesick. And I was like, okay, Montana it is, So those of you watching, you might be able to get the app and find out like what's in the desire, like the real subconscious of what you truly are and what you feel when we're up here clouded and in our head and not sure what's really going on. But that is an echo of sense, but also it could be a stumbling block in some ways if we are incongruent, because that causes energetic purgatory. You can unconsciously say things this way and they could be the opposite here coming back, which causes the biofield to be very mixed up and stagnant, because you're not going to create anything if you're canceling each other out by two different things in the biofield saying two different things, if that makes sense. So what are
Well,
your
yeah, it's people talk about one foot on the accelerator and one foot on the brake.
Absolutely.
So, gee, I didn't know he had an app. When I saw him, it must have been in the 90s. And he would teach people how to listen, play a recording backward, and pick out the forward sounding words. And I mean, it would take him like a half hour to go, 4 hours to go through a half hour of recorded conversation.
Yes, and he has like data and his YouTube and stuff, similar to you. You guys have so much work that people could just listen all day. But he's recorded, campaigns and music and speeches and interviews, and then plays it backwards, and of different entertainment people, politics, like all of that. So you can see for sure what people are really saying. But I just thought it was interesting with the whole echo thing. And then Robert Stevens, who I've worked with conscious language, we've done several conferences together over the years, and he actually married my husband and I. We go way back. But if you're familiar with him, then also words and what we speak can even say like what's going on with the physical body, and or where the stuckage is, why we are stuck in that weird echo of things. But so you're familiar with him too, I guess.
I did. I went to a seminar in Sedona with him years ago. And what you're saying right now reminds me, Greg Braden has on Gaia a program called The Language of the Divine Matrix.
Oh.
And really good stuff. So why did I want to? Well, I highlighted a lot of the phrases from him because he's very much aware and gives the science behind the recognition that it is not, that as we speak it, things come into being. And so he says that the words that we use to communicate day in and day out are more than simply words. They actually are directly linked to the neurons in our brain. And he says the bottom line is that we change the language, we change the brain. Change the language and change the way the brain accesses the matrix.
Wow.
So, yeah, really, there's such good stuff. So anyway, go ahead.
Greg's done some stuff with Robert as well, and but I'm not familiar with that. I wrote it down. I'm gonna have to. You always have so many great connections and resources, and you're just like network lady of all the. You got to meet this person and da 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 da. I love like getting all your little connections, but yeah, I would definitely check out Ann Hamilton too.
I will. I wrote it down. In
Yeah.
terms of the power of names. Well, name has aim in it. It's sort of like your name is like your aim, or like an arrow that aims. And one of my cherished experiences is being in a rose garden in a gazebo, having lunch, and there's a Latin family, a mama and two young girls and a boy, and he was probably the oldest, maybe 7. So the little girls really liked my name, and I thanked them. And I said, "Do you really like your names?" And the little girl said, "Oh, yes, yes." And I said, "Well, really, if you were naming yourselves, are these the names you would have chosen?" And they thought they needed to be cooperative and agreeable with the grown up. So they just said, "Yes, yes." And the little boy said, "No, I would have called myself Soaring Eagle."
Soaring eagle.
And I just thought, I mean, there is a child in touch with his essence, his true self.
That's
And there's that's what we need to rediscover if we've forgotten who we are and maybe even rename ourselves. I have a dream name. Um, oh, I had a dream not long after I crossed the threshold of 50. And in the dream, I got to choose whether or not whether I wanted to remain or leave early and continue my spiritual work on the other side with no penalty for early withdrawal. And it was the means of exit was beheading. And they
oh
said it would, it's just a dull thud. You don't feel a thing and you're out of here. So
wow.
I was like the second one to go to this purple, it was like an opera box, a box at the opera, all velvet and appointed. And that was the beheading chamber. And I went upstairs and I'm going, do I stay? Do I go? Do I stay? Do I go? I mean, it was a toss up. And I decided, it was like Reverend Michael Beckwith has said, if 50.1% of you says yes to life, that's enough.
Ah,
And so 50.1 of me did. So anyway, I left. I was able to get a new sports car, a new vehicle.
okay.
And then I was walking up a hill, and in a playground, sitting on asphalt, was an ancient Native American person. I didn't know male, female. And the person reached up for me to take his hand and dance with him. And I was about to do it, being compliant, and a very tall Indian brave suddenly appeared and grabbed my hand and said, "Sorry, White Raven belongs to me."
Wow.
So I consider that my dream name, or I coined the term Onironim, dream name, for it. Haven't really put it to use. But
Say
when
it again.
White Raven is the name,
What was the other thing you
the
said?
phrase that the Native American brave took my hand and said, "Sorry, White Raven belongs to me." And
Wow.
when David Oates did the reversal on that, he it was aim this all love.
Aim.
Aim this all love.
Oh my gosh.
And so, for your listeners who are probably not familiar, or maybe they are, with reverse speech, I think it's reversespeech.com.
Yep.
And so, is it John David Oates or David John? I think it's
David
John.
John. Actually, he's going to be on the show in 2 weeks. So
Oh,
we're
good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I'd like to.
he's so funny. He's in Australia right now on this like outback kind of track thing. You know how he goes off, and he had some person trolling his Facebook yesterday, and he was aggravated and annoyed or whatever. But the guy's name was Eric, or a guy's name is Eric Hecker. I think it was Heck. It's very close to Heckler.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, it was just like troll, 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 all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I mean, because phonics is not just the spelling, but it's also, I mean, I don't mean spelling as in magic, but spelling as in the certain
Yes.
letters, but it's the phonics, it's the sound. And Heckler is so close to Hecker or whatever. I'm like, I
Yeah.
think they forgot the L in this. I was telling David, trying to just encourage him. I'm like, you know what, whatever. But I thought it was interesting when he did my backwards speech, when I would talk about my animals, it came back, this is my life force. So every time I talk about my animals, this is her life force. This is my life force. Like, so obviously animals is, I mean, it was for me to see kind of more, I wanted to get more into like, what is my purpose, or what is what's my life? What am I supposed to be doing? Because I'm at that 50, I'm going to be 53 next month. And I feel like, what am I doing with my life? Like, maybe I need to go get a job, like, I don't know. I was like, am I even doing the right thing right here? Sometimes I don't know if anyone questions that. Maybe it's the midlife.
Well, I'm sure many, many people do. And I was listening to a podcast. Oh, I just wanted to back up. In terms of the reversals, and it's quite an interesting coincidence that we both know him.
Yeah, I didn't know. That's so crazy.
It is. And so when a reversal is done, it's not like a particular sentence. If anyone said it, the reversal would be the same. The reversals are different, as you said, the tonalities, and I think the emotionality in it alters the reversals. So it's not like this word backward always comes out this way, not like that at all. So I was listening to a podcast, and whoever was speaking was talking about, well, is it a good idea or a God idea?
Oh.
So I understand reaching places that feel like, okay, maybe this is done. Now what? And you have studied so many different branches of wisdom and knowledge and healing.
You too.
Thank you. So it seems to me that it will coalesce in a new way. You just open and ask, what's next?
Yes.
Because clearly you are well prepared. You have been following your North Star and learning what you are eager to learn.
That was my first house, is I lived on North Star. Interesting. And I have a North Star on my tattoo on my back. But
well, there we are. You're doing it. You've been doing it, and it may be time to up level. I mean, you've been doing a lot of healing yourself. Yes. And preparing for the next phase.
Well, going back to the echo thing, evil backwards live, dog backwards God. Not that I'm saying dogs are God, but I mean, it's like you could just go all day with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you can. And this kind of wordplay makes people more conscious, aware, informed, witty, and I think kind, because there's so many messages. People have known me most, or find me, as I mentioned, through the secret spells. So I look at what I call secret spells of the language, which are the contradictions in a single word or another message within it. Like, I wrote a piece. Well, when people buy this book, which you can get on my Word Magic Global website, I include some additional material in the envelope. And so one of the pieces I include is something called proposing changes to our terms of agreement. And so, for instance, we have, we talk about our nervous system. To have a calm nervous system is an impossibility.
Oh my gosh.
It's oxymoronical, meaning that kind of absurd contradiction. That needs renaming, maybe a bioelectromagnetic system and abbreviated, but not a nervous system. Because
oh gosh, yeah. Well, and I don't know if you do this, but being in this space of really knowing about conscious language and now reverse and all that, listening to other people I was just talking to someone yesterday, and I think she might have said at least 4 or 5 times something was, I hate, she's killing her, cancel clear.
Right.
Like, oh, and we have all these weird phrases.
Yes.
That are like trendy or acceptable, like speech, and that are just terrible, that are creating, and I feel like that's how I ended up getting sick the first time, because even saying things like, I am so done with this, cancel clear, or I'm over it, cancel clear, literally those are death sentences. And your body, the subconscious, which is literal, hears you say that and goes, okay. And it starts,
Yes.
creating
Yes.
that for you. And then you have to, I had to reverse engineer all of that. Because
Yes.
I was ignorant in that, meaning not like I'm stupid, but just ignorant of not having the knowledge of certain things that I was saying that were literally creating my path that were not my highest path.
Yes.
So this is just like so important to me to get this kind of information out to people. But what other things have you seen that are kind of things that we should reverse, like the one that you just gave us? Like, what are some other things that come to mind?
Well, I was looking at this essay that I include in a little document for people who purchase the book, and it points out that how anxious everybody is, and there is that fear permeates the mental atmosphere generated by the English language. And take the word atmosphere itself, it first showed up in English in the mid 17th century. Anyway, you'll see the essay when you get the book. So atmosphere, I hear in it as atmost fear, at
Whoa.
the highest level of fear. And when we talk about the word, well, kids, why would anyone want to become a grown up?
Oh,
Or adult, which is an idiot.
adult is an
A
idiot?
D O L T, adult.
So what can we change it to?
Well, I know I haven't figured that out, but it has to be a collective endeavor. And then, like that child who said, I'd call myself Soaring Eagle, chances are by the time he went through adolescence, he may forget that. But look at that term itself. Everything is so explicit and so in our faces. And the Bible has a phrase about the handwriting on the wall. And the handwriting is all over the English language that we are condemning ourselves as we speak. So that transitional time from childhood to adulthood is blatantly termed adolescence. Your essence gets addled by the hormones and by everything that the culture puts out to fragment your awareness, fragment your attention, and cause you to forget who you are, where you came from, and why you're here. And about I don't know, quite some time ago, 13, 14 years ago, I had a dream where I was listening to a very advanced linguist. And he said, when we upgrade English, the new beings arriving won't have to forget who they are or where they came from and what they're here to do.
Wow.
So right now, our language, just like that life sentence, is a death sentence. It's like really a death cult. But the language, just like you were saying, dog in reverse is God. Some people think, well, boy, that really brings the name God down quite a few pegs to the level of a dog. So, but what better teacher of unconditional love on the planet is there than a dog? And like God, it is omnipresent.
Yes.
It's they're everywhere. And I once looked at the word dogma, and I thought, what a weird word. And I figured, well, any metaphysical philosophy, if you don't understand it, is dogma. And if you do understand it, is unnecessary. Pardon me. So I turned the word around and thought, oh my God, it's backward. When you know that you are God, it's am God. Sorry, excuse me.
No, it's good.
So
Yeah.
when we recognize that we have a persona, an identity we built up for moving through the world and in a fairly protected way, given whatever our conditioning was, that's just the surface, a mirage on the surface of the infinite vastness that is our actual essence. And we can download directly. We can be, everything we need to know can come to us as we open to receive it. And I didn't grow up knowing I was smart or had any particular gifts because I had very unconscious and unhappy parents. So, so much of what I learned just came from playing with words and seeing the hidden messages, and the need to tune up the language.
Yeah.
So, like for instance, I in sharing with a group some time ago, I said, what'll we do about the fact that our most frequent greeting to each other is hello, and if you reverse the syllables, it becomes oh hell.
Jeez.
And so she said, how about hallow, which means to honor as sacred.
Well, I've heard, I guess it was you that told me instead, I don't know if you personally told me or if I just picked it up, but instead of good morning, grand rising, and
I didn't invent that. I don't know where that came from, but I think it's probably in reaction to my video, that how do we give each other a blessing instead of subliminally touch upon maybe residual grief or even very current grief.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And then, depression, opposite of expression, or oppression, there's so much, it would be fun is to have a conference with you and Ann Hamilton and David Oates and Robert Stevens.
Uh-huh.
That would be the best.
That would be fun. That would be great.
Really fun thing. I might have to think on this and get some kind of panel together where we all speak together at once.
Uh-huh.
But that might be interesting with Anne being in Australia. David is in Australia. Where you're in the States, right?
Yeah, I'm in Southern California.
So Robert and I and you would be all in the state. We would just have to figure out a time where everyone could do it. But that would be amazing to have a panel like that.
That would be fun. And with depression, in my early 30s, I was getting hypnosis for healing depression. And the hypnotherapist was saying, you're experiencing deep rest. And I said, there's that word. And he said, what word? And I said, depression. Yeah. And I figured that on a subconscious level, maybe my mind thinks that I can get some rest if I'm depressed.
Oh my goodness.
And then my cousin, who's a psychiatrist, said that in bipolar disorder, the depression is considered the rest cycle. So it's like if we're moving magnetically, electromagnetically, and we have words that are like these, that each one are magnetic verbal nuggets, and they can misdirect us. So we go looking in the wrong direction for that which can never satisfy us.
Wow. Yeah, I think the nervous system thing really got me thinking. I wonder about state names too, like Montana, Louisiana. What is there's got to be, California. I know they've changed to some other things that aren't so nice.
Yeah. You know what? I haven't looked, that hasn't popped out at me, so I can't contribute to that conversation. Mainly people and people's names like Obama, Abomination.
Whoa.
And
Trump,
trying to trump everybody. I mean, it really, really is blatant.
Yeah, and then mix that with music. And that is a real good way to spell, because it gets especially if it's a trendy kind of sticks with you. I mean, I've caught myself listening to a song or whatever, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the words. And hours, days later, I'll just be doing anything random and it's still in my mind, like stuck. And I'm like, stop it, stop it, stop it, get out, stop thinking that.
Well, yeah, that I hear you. And I slogans, I call them the slogans of slogans
Ooh,
that are so awful, like right to life. It just sounds, yes, I'm right, you know, I'm for life, and yet not for supporting it before it's born or even after, just that every fertilized egg must come to full term. Where is that compassionate? And yes, they've got that slogan that is an earworm and sticks in your head. Well, you mean if I think women should have choice, I'm against life? I mean,
right.
it's just crazy because everything is so reductionist, reducing arguments or conversations down to a few words. And similarly, defund the police, that isn't what it meant. How did that one get passed through and then multiplied? It's about reallocate resources. Easier to say and more explicit in its meaning. So the language is being tremendously manipulated. Gorgeous words have been lost or reappropriated. And it's so much fun to play in a dictionary. It's fun to play with letters and words. Like if your listeners want to see that our self contradictory nature is written on our faces, just write down the word eyes, EYES, and then nose, NOSE,
Nice. That's
and,
cool.
and mouth and chin. So uh, the play is endless. So, for instance, if you look at the word eyes, you see we have yes in our eyes. It's EYES. And another word for yes is AYE, which is pronounced I. And so our identity, I, and our perception, EYE, are intermingled in these words.
Wow.
And another way of saying yes is SI, which is what we do with our eyes. So you can become a philosopher playing with this. What
Yes.
does it mean that there's yes in our eyes and no in our nose and out in our mouth and in our chin? And did you know we have a third ear? I mean, these are puzzles that just kind of open up our consciousness to see that the language is so rich with insight and our own wisdom reflected back to us if we but notice. And
Yeah.
then, of course, the earth heart paradigm, the fact that they are the very same word.
Yes.
Just, and so, what do you think the significance of that is? If you have young children at home, ask them, ask your partner, ask yourself, what could be if this were a message, if we're living a dream and the life stream is the life's dream, so if we're living a dream and we see this pun, it's really an anagram, earth and heart, what is their relationship? What are we meant, how should we interpret their intersection?
Yeah.
And children have beautiful answers, just and
Yes.
very fun to contemplate.
Well, I can't believe this is getting close to the time where we're ending, but any final words of encouragement about being aware and or changing up the way we speak or whatever? And then also please give your website, your book stuff, your, where can we find you, your work, your YouTube? I know I'm going to have all of this for you guys watching. I'm going to have all the links and everything in her bio here underneath, but just verbally for those who are just only listening and not seeing, I like to have kind of both so people can really get all that information. But what do you do? What do you tell people? Where do people start if they're really trying to wake up into their language?
Start playing with words. And you might just look at as I said, what's written on our faces: eyes, ears, nose, mouth, chin. There's something in each one of them. And the riff on eyes that I already began can keep going. So it's a way of discovering, it's a way of having fun. Um, it's a way of gaining greater mastery. The ancients knew that playing with words heightened literacy, and they also, East and West, recognized that when words had these kind of overlaps in sound or spelling, that there was a divine significance to it, and they needed to be honored. And in China, um, the puns that occur in language are highly significant. And for instance, um, well, how do I don't know how much time to go back. Anyway, um, the word fu in Chinese means happiness, and it also means bat. So
That
a bat, B-A-T, is a symbol of happiness.
okay.
And my just like Alice, who went through the looking glass and was following after a white rabbit, I went through the looking glass. I feel like an elemental, elemental, who went through the looking glass into this dimension and had to deconstruct the language to find your way back home again. And I went in pursuit of a bat because someone told me one had flown out of this box and into the backyard. I was a toddler and had landed in a tree, and I ran out to the tree, and at some point realized I was expecting to find a baseball bat.
Oh wow.
So my in my memory, it's my first recognition that unrelated words could have the same meaning, and yet how on the surface they're unrelated, on another level maybe not. Anyway, endless fun. um, it's self-awakening wordplay to play with words this way. My website is wordmagicglobal.com, and you'll see the upcoming events. I've been giving writing circles, facilitating writing circles every month, and there will soon be a word magic online class. I don't have it ready yet, but I will soon. And so there's just a lot of podcasts, a lot of um, really interesting blogs. And I just encourage everyone to play with words because we can enlighten ourselves this way and
Absolutely.
recognize our power with the word to take command of the English language. So I just want to quickly add that on my YouTube channel, you'll find the secret spells of the English language, which I posted in 2010. Other people have borrowed my content and title, but that's never, not a problem. Not honest, but anyway.
Right.
Um, the anthem that goes with it is called Taking Command of the English Language. And it gives a vision of how we can collectively,
Oops. Sorry.
collectively upgrade the language to, to, to heal our word. Must be time to get off. To heal our world by healing the word. And just one last thing, speaking
Yeah.
beauty, loving kindness. I look at the earth heart connection as meaning we're here to get a heart, not get ahead of everyone else in the human race. And and the word love itself, when you turn it around, begins evolution, EVOL. So speaking beauty, speaking loving kindness and beauty is the most wonderful beauty treatment you can give for yourself to enhance qualities of being that are so beautiful. And there's so many phrases that are in use and casually used that are actually vulgar. And it's like having garbage in your mouth. I mean, it's okay, but I'd rather have something sweet personally.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. I awakened to always loved language. I've always loved writing since English was my favorite, in high school, college, all of those things, but really dove into words and meanings and would constantly read dictionaries and just like break words down. And, I don't know why that is just something that's really, kind of a thing for me, but you have helped so much in my process of, navigating through all of this and brought so many pieces. Even just today, I'm just like, whoa, that's a new one. That's a new one. There are so many things packed into today that I just really, really appreciate. And you guys who are watching, definitely get in with her, what she's doing, her work, get her book. She does private consultations, and that was really very helpful for me. She did a whole write-up of, just a decree, several decrees to kind of get in the flow of some things to be thinking about. Printed it up, put it out, something where you could see visually that's customized to you and what's going on with you to kind of like reverse engineer it. But yeah, and then just the resources this lady has. As I was talking to her in my own session, she's like, oh, let me connect you with this lady, and this will help you with that. And just, oh my gosh, you know everyone. You know everyone, and everyone knows you. And this is just so cool. But I just thank you from my heart for your service to this earth, this heart, and for what you bring to the air. And I just think it's beautiful. And one thing too, I was going to say names, because I've had so many animals, and I had 98 kittens in the last 5 years. And,
Oh my
we
gosh.
name them all, it's always like, what's the perfect name for you? And what's the perfect name for you? And sometimes they tell us, or I listen and go, what do you want to be called? But so I have several name books just because of all that. But my daughter, one of my other daughters is named Soren. You mentioned Soren Eagle, and she's named after her great grandfather. It means voice of God or voice of thunder. But also, when we went to this Disney, actually, they had a ride called Soren Eagle. I think it was Soren Eagle, and I was like, oh, that's like Soren, So you reminded me of that again today. So anyway, you're just such a pleasure and just a beautiful soul, and I know everyone here agrees. And I do literally encourage you guys, go to her website, go to her YouTube, listen to some of these things that she has put out. Her poetry is beautiful. Like, there's so much there for you guys. And or go see her in real life, and maybe we will do some sort of panel or something in the future. But thank you so much. And
my pleasure.
Yeah. Also you guys go to swiftfire.org, drsharnael.com, again, do all the things, get on the newsletter. That way, what's going on in the future. And if we do something in the future with this panel that we're talking about, then you'll know about it. You'll get a heads up. And even when David Oates comes, you'll know when the heads up is for that. So thank you guys again for all watching. Thank you for the members who are watching. We appreciate your support. That means a lot to us to help to be able to do this kind of stuff and to get this information out there. It takes a lot to prepare and get everything and all the technology and arranging schedules and things like that. So behind the scenes, there's a lot more than maybe just you turning on the thing, getting instant stuff. So those of you who help us, from my heart to yours, thank you so much for that help and support. And it's only $4.99 a month. And if that's something that you could do to help, then there's a member button here on the description too that can help. And even if it's only for a month or two, everything helps. So if you feel like that's in your heart, click that button too. But love you guys, and thank you again, Miss Airica. And I know we'll be continuing our conversation. And you guys all have a wonderful Thursday.
I just want to point out, it looks like we're both wearing a very similar necklace.
Yes, this is Flower of Life.
And mine is a white rose.
Rose. Here we go back with the rose thing again.
Yeah.
So yeah, love it. Little warrior of rose. But All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. And we will see you next Thursday at noon. Every week we're here Thursday at noon. And I look forward to having you guys back again soon. We'll talk soon and talk later. See you out there somewhere, maybe at an event or in real life someday soon. Talk later. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Love to everyone.